Um, I don't even know how I'm gonna really start this video or really explain it. This is just more of a journal, I guess. Explaining how I feel about random things. But today I wanted to talk about numbness in relationships and in the world. Um, Sometimes my experience with numbness comes from a 3 year relationship. The start was amazing. I had actually gotten out of a relationship before then. That one was not very positive for my mental health and probably not for hers either. I was a bit of a chad. I did not know how to show my love or affection to someone who was new to me. And so I guess coming from a perspective of regret, of knowing how to love someone now, I'm glad that I found this second person. I was glad that I found this second person because I could show the admiration and love that I had felt disillusioned by for the longest time finally. But it felt good. I felt confident in myself. I felt like things were looking up. And then things started to change. I became agitated. Small things, jealous. I think that stems from that past relationship. Feeling like I was the second in command. Feeling like there were others that were more important to me in the relationship. And while obviously that hurt, it affected me more spiritually. It made me kind of require someone to constantly be there for me, to feel adequate. Because otherwise, every single thing I would do was not enough. And that strained me in this person's relationship when everything else should have been going good. And so I kind of took that head on. I realized how much that would affect me. Sorry, I'm sick. I'm sick. And I saw how much that would affect me in that way, and I just had to deal with it. I had no outlet either. I, in all honesty, neglected friends for this relationship. I would prioritize her over others so that I could stay in this relationship, because once again I felt without a relationship, without having someone there, I was inadequate. And while I know it's not true, deep down I always felt it. And so having this feeling of inadequacy in a relationship, while also being jealous of even the small things, that led to very quickly spirals of, I'll be honest, not very good behavior by me. Spirals of, I can't even explain what. Just me feeling so down about myself, putting it onto her. And while I don't think that necessarily strained our relationship, I got over it. I explained it to her, and she was, in all respects, understanding of it, and I appreciate that with every fiber of my body. But but it have nothing more to say, but it meant that it cut that feeling of a honeymoon period over. We were 5 months into that period, just about, but it did start to cut that feeling of this person is amazing in my eyes, which isn't necessarily bad. I always thought no one can be perfect. It doesn't make sense, but that doesn't mean I wanted her to be not happy. That doesn't mean that I felt like she couldn't see me like she used to. The smile, and she would get joy every time. Felt like something would be different every time we spoke. And while that kind of would happen naturally as well, it in my mind came because of my reactions. And so I dealt with that. You know, I slowly overcame them, and I understood from her perspective. And at that time, I was very politically illiterate. We're talking 2024. I didn't really have an understanding of much. I knew that the Ukraine war sucked, sounded stupid, but it came from what, you know? It felt meaningless. And I kind of, I wouldn't say expected, but I just, I couldn't understand. And that came from a need of seeing women as nothing more than for a man. You know, that my only interactions with a woman should ever be because I like her, not because I want to be friends. I can't tell you where that stems from without it being too personal, but it impacted the relationship I had with women then, because that meant that every time I talked to one, the only thought was not, oh, you're a cool person, you want to be my friend. It was, so you either want to date me, or you want to break me and this girl up. And that's twofold as well, because that means you start to think of of men that talk to your woman, but men that talk to the girl that you're with, kind of meant that you thought there would always be a man hitting on her, and that you had to step in. And while that can be cool, your jealousy issues combined with that spiraled, and it only made yourself worse. And so it came and went. I would start feeling understanding as, you know, I would start to understand her perspective and why I shouldn't feel jealous of people. But then I would also not understand their perspective at all and feel immense jealousy. And so when that eventually subsided, after a long period of working on myself, what was left of our relationship was nothing but a husk. We were jaded. We were different. We were not some stupid kids that were in love anymore. We were people that had to change and that knew each other's faults, but not deeply enough to actually feel like there was an understanding. And and while I'm happy to, while it's easy to blame another person, while it's easy to say, yeah, it's because she did this, I don't think there is a point in doing that. I think it was a mix of us just being different and purely being created from the lust of wanting to be out of a relationship and feel good about each other. And when that disappeared, I think our love for each other did. And, you know, while that's important, it's shaped how I view a relationship. I guess I always felt like it would eventually end in that feeling numb. And that's kind of where that long wraparound, I guess, came from. Because as much as me talking about this old relationship and the pitfalls and jealousy that I fell into that made everything kind of fucked, it was also numbness that killed it. You know, I started to become complacent in my relationship. Not in the sense that I didn't want one. I was very happy having a relationship, having someone stable that I could talk to. It just kind of disappeared. It would be here's another day with this person. And I don't think a relationship could be viewed like that positively. And that meant that complacency became normalcy. We both just kind of accepted this complacency as what a normal relationship would feel like. So, if 2024 was the year of feeling numb, not numb, if 2024 was the year of feeling like jealous and inadequate, 25 was the year of feeling numb. And feeling numb in that way is strange, because you don't know it. You can sit there. I know that's something that you're gonna think you would feel it, right? You would feel like everything's staying the same, but you don't know it. Until you're out of it. Until you see what the other line can hold. For example, when I eventually got out of that relationship, I saw another world of people feeling non-stagnant. Like, I wouldn't say their life had purpose, but their future wasn't planned, and that felt great. That felt like the small things that we had planned out, the things that we liked, the small things we disagreed on. It felt good in that moment to know that there's something different. And well, that is never going to critique, of anyone really. That's not her fault that we fell into that. I wouldn't say it's my fault either. It just happened. But, when 2025 did happen and it felt numb, you feel you don't deal with things like you used to. You don't go and search for new. You become comfortable in the old, then you become reliant on the old. And when the old doesn't really hold up, isn't good for you, you don't know it. And so, because we both had school, I couldn't really see her during the day. And so I would have to see her outside of school. I would go to her house at night, study at her house, which was, in all honesty, one thing that wasn't really good about us. We couldn't really study together. Nonetheless, it meant that I felt a requirement constantly to be at her house every night. So, let alone was I neglecting my parents, I was also neglecting myself. My free time was spent with her. I didn't have much free time. I was doing the end of my HSC in 25. So, my time alone for myself was was strangely enough spent in a car driving from her house in the dead of night. And that being my alone time kind of meant that all my processing of emotions, instead of dealt with through her, was dealt with then. Because I could only talk, feel so many things. I was slow to pick up things I needed. Didn't know what I wanted, because everything felt like it was already planned. And the only way to cope with that is to feel numb. And this is a bit personal, but we went through a period of not really having intimacy. And I don't mean that in a physical intimacy way. No, I don't mean that in a I need sex every day to cope. While I'll probably make a thing, a diet, whatever the hell these things are going to be called, about my problems with lust that I've had in the past, I'm not gonna sit and also, sorry, let me start that again. I'm not gonna be complacent with physical intimacy. I'm not gonna just sit around and feel stupid for wanting to kiss someone, but we couldn't. I guess in our heads, because of media and everything that you see around, making out or just being kissing or doing dumb things in any way is meant to be a form of, this is where intimacy starts, and it's not. I found out later afterwards that intimacy, being intimate with someone, can just be kissing or holding hands, cuddling, and I feel so stupid for feeling like that, you know? I feel so dumb for staying in a relationship where my needs weren't met because we hadn't set up an agreed thing that this is what we both need. And I'm not sure, in all honesty, if she needs that anymore. We haven't talked about it. I feel like maybe she doesn't. Maybe that's but that's fine. But it is what I need. And to have numbness because of that, to feel numb purely because you actually can't cope with the fact that you can't be close to this person while you're meant to be in a long-term relationship, hurt quite a lot. And so I shouldn't have felt like a idiot for seeing a couple being jealous of the fact that they can be intimate. I shouldn't have felt like that, but I did. And now I recognize that that was not even a feeling of well, that's not a crazy feeling to have. You're not saying you want to be with this other person and that you hate your partner, but you're instead saying that you were lacking something that you desire to your core, and your only emotional processing way to deal with it is to just feel nothing. And I felt nothing. So what do I do? You know, what do you do when you can't do anything? You know, when you're stuck in a loving relationship, wanting more. You don't do anything. You stay. I'm joking here, by the way. I truly don't believe if someone's paths divide that much, then they should be together. I guess, as I said before, you don't know in the moment that this is wrong. Rationalize it. You dismiss it. You say everyone feels like this sometimes. And that is my biggest fear. This is really turning into something about intimacy. My biggest fear for a very long time, as not even a kid, but as just a young person, was, well, when we go old, things are gonna go again. It's gonna go stale. Look, in the relationship, people aren't going to want to feel that kind of intimacy again, and so I gotta feel like shit, and then I'm going to not and feel numb. Weirdly enough, I knew that I would feel numb. Know how to say it? I didn't know. And do you say to someone that their whole relationship is making you feel so disappointed to the point. Sorry, my voice is very, very gone. To the point of feeling numb, feeling nothing, but you want to stay with them because they provide you stability. It's hard. For a time, I couldn't actually do that. For a time, I couldn't convey that emotion. 2026 is where things changed. Started to look up. In a way. Started university. And I met a lot of new people. And I'm so grateful I met these people. But you know, these people stopped being a norm. You know, they stopped being this, they're always going to be there. I had to put effort to see them. I had to ignore my previous relationship to see them. And that might sound bad, but when I consider that I was having to ignore my friends to be in a relationship and couldn't just be in a relationship and also see my friends sometimes, meant that something was deeply wrong. Interestingly, feeling numb goes away. Feeling like there's nothing there, feeling like there's a pit that'll never leave and always stay, interestingly enough, goes away. It takes time, but it will. When you realize that, you'll feel relief. I ended that relationship sometime into April. It was not a clean breakup at all. But I knew it had to happen because I would come back from university back to my hometown every weekend to see her. And I felt the numbness come back. It would be an immediate change. And while I can chalk that up, in my head at least, to emotionally having dopamine in one place and then having less of it in another, which would be natural. But even then, it's also something is inherently wrong when you haven't seen each other in 3 weeks. And yet, when you're going to go see them, there is no existential joy that you once felt. There is no, I'm so sorry, that came out really wrong. I'm so excited to do this. You know, there is none of that in that moment. I'm so excited to see this person. I can't wait. But then what? You know? It needed to end. So that's what I did. And I explained it wrong. I conveyed it in every wrong possible way. I you know, I explained that, oh yeah, I just needed space. We wanted different things. And while that was true as well, we did eventually end up wanting different things in life. What was completely untrue is that I needed space. Because I didn't. I needed change. And change is hard. Because how do you change? How do you change in a way that you don't know, in a foreign place that you've only been for a couple months? How do you change and stop feeling this existential nothing? You don't. You just you can't. That is a you on your own have to figure out issue. And as sucks as that is, as shitty as that sounds, it's good to realize. Because in a way, it stopped me from feeling like this was some kind of thing I needed. That there was some trope that I needed to feel. There was some place that I needed to be. Some person I had to be. Made me feel finally free. I felt happy. I felt myself first time in a very long time realizing that I would have to change on my own. While it's not stopped feeling numb, it hasn't exactly gone away. Sure, as I do this more, explain more things about why I feel the way I do, but it's not, no. It's at the end of it. It won't be for a long time. But then again, it's alleviating to know it will end. I think I'm going to stop it here. I went on a very long ramble. 1938. I'll continue this specific playthrough. The world's kind of fucked, in all honesty. Like, what has happened? Big China. I'm excited to see where it goes. Spain's gonna win. It looks very much a socialist first, maybe fascist. Don't know if that one's fascist actually. What is this? No, that's commie. Yeah, we got 3 blocks, but that's my experience of feeling numb. I don't know if anyone else can relate or really think the same way as I do. It's probably gonna just be sent out into the void. I appreciate anyone that is listening, but I hope you're having a good day. I'll talk. I'll probably make another video at some point. This was more of a journal about myself than anything. But goodbye.